This is the JNP Pod, Episode 3. Today's guest, Professor Daniel Boateng. Let's start the show.
This is the JNP Pod with Jim Noguera. It is the JNP Pod with Jim Noguera.
Most interested man in the world. Interested.
With Jim Noguera.
Interested. The most interested man in the world. Interested.
It is the
Interested.
in the world.
The following interview contains conversation with Professor Daniel Boateng. He has taught in Africa, he has taught in China, and he now teaches here in the United States. We work together at the Writing Center, and he is very interesting and multifaceted. In the interview, we talk about teaching, what it's like to teach in China, what it's like to teach in Africa and in the US. And he also plays a little bit of the keyboard for us. And now, Professor Daniel Boateng. I'm here with Professor Daniel Boateng. Welcome to the JNP Pod.
Thank you very much, Professor Noguera.
So I've been wanting to do this for a while. You are an educator, as I am.
Right.
And I understand that you work at a couple of colleges.
That's correct.
So so tell me, I think you told me before, but I don't exactly remember. Forgive me. What are the colleges you work at?
Yes, I teach at the Union County College. I teach at Bergen Community College, and then at that college, I always call it a Spanish college, Boricua.
Boricua.
College, yes.
Boricua College, really?
Yes, I do teach there as
There
well.
are several Boricua colleges,
Yeah,
right?
Boricua College here in the Bronx.
Oh,
the campus.
And okay, in the Bronx, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if I've seen that campus. I have seen the one in Manhattan, like around Fort Washington. Around
Yes, that one on Washington and 3rd Avenue. Yeah, that's where this one is.
Okay. So you're a really interesting person, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show.
Right.
Although when I run into many people, I find that that many people are interesting. Basically everybody's interesting for some particular reason. But you have such an interesting story. Let's get into it a little bit. So you have taught in Africa?
Yes.
In Ghana specifically,
in Ghana,
right?
I taught in Ghana.
And you taught in China?
China, yes.
And now you teach here in the US?
Right.
Wow, amazing. I guess let's start chronologically. So I like to ask people, what is it about their childhood that led to them choosing the path that they're on? So is there anything from your childhood that you remember that?
Okay, I will tell you a lot about that. My father is an educator, and my mother, who is now, she's ill and cannot teach anymore, but she was an educator also. They were very interesting people. very excited insofar as teaching and raising children, directing children, putting things together to get children in the right path has been their goal and objective in life.
Wow.
Now, they raised us this way. We are 7 kids, and I'm the first boy. 7 siblings, and we have only 1 girl among us. And somehow, I have a passion, not because my father is a teacher or my mother is. I have the passion for
That's great.
for teaching. Sometimes I feel like if you do any other thing with me, I can't function except to have me teach. So somehow I'm also sure that I must have taken the whole thing from my parents. My father is a very wonderful teacher, and being my father's child, I believe that I have, these same elements that is saying that makes him become a wonderful teacher inside me also.
Wow.
And so I somehow got into that. I just loved to want to teach. And so in Ghana, after secondary school, I did 5 years secondary school, and then that's high school. And then I did another 2 years called the GC advanced level. In the British world, you do 5 years high school education, and then you do this 2 years of advanced level. We call that sixth form. And then when I graduated, I wanted to go teach, so I went to attend the college for teachers, a teacher training college, and that's where I studied to be a teacher after graduating, and I began to teach. That was 1995.
Wow.
I began teaching in the junior high school. I moved on to the senior high school, and then I went back to school again to study my bachelor's in English. The first I did was a degree to be certified as a teacher. So the question was, what was it that got me into that path? It's just the passion that I got from my parents, and the fact that I also love to want to teach, and so I have taught. So if you look at it, if you look at the pathway, you find that after teaching for 2 years, having graduated the Teachers College, I went back to school to get a degree in English. Then I went on to teach English, and then went to China.
Oh.
So there, I was teaching. I took a second degree in English, and then continued teaching. And then I came here to America, and then I continued teaching after taking another second degree. And then I'm here with you,
Now you're
and
here.
I'm still learning anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that something like teaching is such a learning experience, and you never stop learning? That was a lot of time periods in which you summarize a lot. I mean, you've accomplished so much.
Right. Thank you.
Where did you study? Did you get everything in the U.S.? Did you do some work here, some work overseas?
So I got my first 2 degrees. The first one was a bachelor's in teaching
Great.
done in Ghana, and then a second was a bachelor's not in teaching but in English language. And in fact, it was a combined major, English and music, for the second bachelor's that I got. And then these 2 were I achieved these in Ghana, back in Africa. So when I went into China, I did my second degree. That was in Shanghai University in China, where I got a master's degree in American literature.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So when I came into America, I got the another second degree in English and creative writing from the Southern New Hampshire University. So, and now I'm almost done with the PhD in educational leadership with Kaiser University.
Wow. Um, um, I had no idea you have a degree in creative writing.
Yes, I do.
What was your focus?
Yeah, on fiction.
Fiction,
Yeah,
really?
writing
Oh,
fiction,
wow,
yeah.
that's amazing. So did I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an MFA from City College,
Yes,
which
I'm
was a
very
great
much aware,
experience.
yes.
A great experience, and I focused on fiction. And you know, it's one of those forms of writing where you don't have the luxury of waiting around for a muse to come. It's like if you write long form, you have to kind of just every day kind of go
Yeah.
at it.
It is a continuous thing. It should be part and parcel of your life. Something you do every time. You need to be thinking, writing every time. Yes.
I had no idea you were so multifaceted. I mean, to this degree.
Right. Thank you.
I almost don't know where to go next. You said you studied music, and for people who are watching, actually, and people who are listening, you can't quite see this massive keyboard that's here that you carried all by yourself.
Right.
It's slightly off camera. How many keys?
This is 72 keys.
72 keys.
Yes.
A massive keyboard.
Right.
And you're gonna play something a little bit later. Before you do, is that what you studied when you say music, or were you studying like the technical aspects of it? Or?
As I would explain that. So I did a combined major in English and music. So I did two at the same time, and that music aspect is that one where I did composition. My major instrument was a piano. I did composition. I did harmony and all of the aspects of English musicology. Having to do with the history of music and all the. But my primary concentration is composing. Actually, my concentration is on art music, composing church music. So that is one thing that I do. So I direct choirs. So if I direct like 3 choirs on Sundays and on Saturdays, I play the piano and direct the choirs for some churches that worship on Saturday and some others on Sunday.
I find it so interesting that
Right.
so far, I mean, I've had 3 guests, and my 4th guest, this is true for him as well, who I'm going to be interviewing a Seventh-day Adventist who's very religious. Jose Reyes.
I didn't know that. I know him.
Yeah.
very well.
He's another educator like
I am
yourself.
Seventh-day Adventist too.
You're Seventh-day Adventist
Right.
too. Okay, I didn't know that about you. I find it so fascinating that everybody I've had so far has had a very particular. They've just been people of faith,
Right.
and people who have very strong faith. I'm not particularly I don't prescribe to a particular religion.
Right.
But if I were being honest, I would say that there are times when I feel like there is some intelligence that is, beyond us, and it's maybe out there somewhere. I mean, I can't prove it. I mean, nobody can, but it's in that way I feel a connection with people such as yourself, and I also find that religious individuals like you and Jose and the people I've had on before, some of the most genuinely nice people that I have met. I really do mean that. There's something about religion, and this is true for Islam. This is true for Christianity, from my experience. The religious followers have been some of the most genuine, magnanimous, just giving, very giving.
Right.
how has well, what do you think about that statement? And do you think that there's something that in religion that makes
People want to give, and
I mean, obviously, it's part of the doctrine. I know that, but do you feel like religious people are just different? That there's something beyond just a doctrine that makes them so genuinely nice. Not all, but many.
okay. If before I even talk about that aspect of religion, I want us to face logic and just go natural before that. Now, life itself is such that if there is no receiving without giving. You give love to receive love. You get nice to be nice to. So if you talk about Christians, apart from the fact that that is a principle, I think it's also it's a principle. It's a natural principle in life that the more you give, the more you want to be nice out there. The more there can be only a few occasions. It's like smiling. When you smile, it naturally infects others who have its effect. Now, in Christianity, in religion, I am a Christian, so I would want to always use that because I'm not Muslim or of any of the other religions. Now, you find that the principles, the teachings of Jesus, the dictates, the culture of Christianity itself it teaches that we have to be giving. That because Jesus, he gave his life. He gave, and so he expects us to give. And so we are told, I don't want to indoctrinate you, but we are told in John chapter 3 verse 16 that for God so loved the world that he gave, that aspect. Mm-hmm. So you find that every Christian who really is a true Christian should have this kind of atmosphere that revolve around them. So that's what I can say. That's what makes genuine Christians like they are.
It sounds like what you're saying is that that Christians live with a certain sense of gratitude because of their Savior, Jesus Christ, who was martyred for the cause of humanity.
Right.
And I think that's a great that's a great way of explaining it. I can see that. Yeah. Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so since we talked about your musical ability, I don't want to sort of leave that off in the atmosphere. I want to for you to play something. You brought it here because you wanted to play something, right?
I mean, in as much as this interview is concerned, I knew that you were going to go to. Once I talked about music, then it must obviously come with something, trailing it, and that's the keyboard, and that's why I brought it actually.
Okay, so we're gonna try to get maybe this microphone as close as possible to the keyboard.
The keyboard,
and then play whatever you want.
Right.
Okay, so let's listen to Daniel Boateng. Are you gonna play a particular piece?
Yes, I have some of these compositions that I've done myself. I might want to play a couple of them. I have done compositions in Akan. That's a language in Ghana. Oh. Most of the churches where I direct the choirs are Ghanaian, and a few others are in English. There's one church that worships in English, and I have a couple of songs. I have not so many songs in English, but then I have many in Akan because that's why I compose in Akan because it's useful for the church where I direct the choir.
Okay.
This is a hymn tune that I composed. The lyrics are not mine, but then the words of the song touched me so much. The lyrics touched me so much, so I gave it a tune and said, "King of my life, I crown thee now. Thine is a glory. But let me not forget the love that you have shown me. Let me not forget the agony that you went through on Calvary." So we just talked about the death of Christ. And so I made this tune for the choir. And I love it so much. So I would like to play that. And I would be singing alongside as I play.
Okay. Let me see if I can give you my microphone that you can speak into, and then we'll just we'll put the other microphone as close to the speaker as possible. So I'm gonna give you this microphone, and you can sing into this.
Okay.
If you want, you could even. Oh no, well you can't hold it. I'll increase the gain on this actually.
King of my life, I crown thee now. Thy shall the glory be, lest I forget thy love for me. Lead me to Calvary. King of my life, I crown thee now. Thy shall the glory be, lest I forget thy love for me. Lead me to Calvary, lest I forget Gethsemane. Let I forget thy love for me, lest I forget thy love for me. Lead me to Calvary, lest I forget Gethsemane. Lest I forget thy love for me. Lest I forget thy love for me. Lead me to Calvary. Thank you.
That was a beautiful piece, Daniel.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of explained it all. So, I mean, how often do you write music?
Yeah, it's writing and composing is it's inspirational. Sometimes you do not have. It's like writing. Sometimes when you're writing, you find that you don't have the inspiration at all. You don't feel.
Yes.
You don't have the feel to write. It's the same with composing. Sometimes, whilst the preacher is presenting a sermon, you have the inspiration. The tune comes with the harmony and everything, and I would begin to put that down. Sometimes when I usually compose a lot when I'm in the plane traveling, or when I'm in a bus going. Anytime I take a trip, I do compose. I love to compose in serenity, and when I'm close to nature, when I'm taking a walk in any park, or that's when I get inspiration, or when I get into some very difficult situations.
Yes.
I compose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do you find that that's the case, that when you go through difficult times, do you find yourself more religious?
Yeah, in actual fact, when I pray more I try to get connected more to God at all times, but during difficult times, I I just can't help it. I have to get the connection more than I have always done. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't mean to have so much of this conversation about religion, but
Right.
I can definitely relate. I used to be religious
Right.
to an extent, and I find myself very comforted by the religious friends that I do have,
Right.
because I feel something from them that even though we might disagree about philosophical points or religious points, I feel a certain genuineness from them that I don't get from other people, and they're just very trustworthy
Right.
and genuine people. So, all right, maybe we'll get off that topic now.
Right. Thanks. That it was good anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're a very multifaceted person, but I really want to know about your time teaching in Africa, your
Yes.
time teaching in China.
China.
So let's start with Africa. So, were you born in Ghana?
Yes, I was born in Ghana.
Okay. So tell me, how was it to teach in your home country?
Yes, it's very interesting. Experiencing teaching in Ghana, teaching in China, teaching in America. I find myself exposed to so much. I have come to learn so much, and in fact, I've acquired so much. Now in Ghana, teaching is such that the teacher is a custodian of knowledge. In those times, I know, I taught between 1995 and then 2004, 2003, 2004. The teacher is the custodian of knowledge. The pedagogy in those times was the teacher had to look for everything, try to engage students. And we didn't have the resources that we have here in America or in China. In Ghana, it is different. Students will have to struggle to, if I'm talking about, in the course of my teaching, if I have to be, if it was science and I was going to be talking about a beaker, it's not always that we have a beaker. I would have to, innovate, create something that looks very much like that, and then get students to know. It is very, as I said, it was a very interesting experience. Students are very listening. They are very humble. It's not like in China, or in China is also a very different thing. But if I compare that one to America, it's totally very different. Students are really very humble, very respectful, and ready to learn. Anything you give to the student, he takes it without any challenge. He takes it without any questions. They are so willing. I don't know what it is now, but some years back when I did teaching, I found that it was that interesting, and that students, were always struggling to get to where they would want to get to. And when it comes to student-teacher interaction, I taught English, and the students adore the teacher so much. And you would have to, as a teacher, you'd have to also show yourself worthy of approval. You have to do what you have to do in order. And most of the time, we prepared students for exams. And so you have to do everything possible to make sure the students pass the exams. If the students don't pass the exam, as a teacher, you have failed. We have at the level where I taught the first time was a junior high school. Whatever you do, here the state test, it's not compulsory for everybody, you know. But in Ghana, the test the student took was what would have them enter high school. And so it behoved on the teacher to do everything possible in order to, it was my area in English, to make sure they pass English. So you had to do everything possible. And if you had to meet them at night, sometimes you had to have extra classes, sometimes in the night. Sometimes when immediately school is over, you have to get your students to be in class so you can teach them, not for money, not for anything, but you wanted to teach them so they could make the objective that you have set before you. So it was all about teacher struggle to make it, students struggle to make it. So we all did all that we could to. So that was it. You could also control, say anything. The student's ready to do it. Come at 7. The student is ready to come. Here it's not like that. You cannot. The situation is very different. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's a very. It seems like a very humble, sort of grateful atmosphere that you're talking about in Ghana.
Yes.
And you also talked about lack of resources. How bad is the lack of resources where you were teaching?
Yeah, when I was teaching in those times between 1995 and 2004, we didn't have computers like that. Students didn't even know of the internet back then. So, all that we relied on were textbooks. Personally, I didn't do anything with the internet because I was teaching in some remote areas of the western region of Ghana where students really lacked. I mean, the teacher was their god. They knew nothing, and it is the teacher who had to. The student here, a student can go on the internet and at least do some search, right?
Yeah.
Then there was nothing like that. It was all the teacher's duty to do everything. The textbook that was available was what we used, and we had to read, coupled with some other books that we could find. Anytime we went to the bookshops to get both textbooks, and some of us corresponded with people in America. Oh, I need a book like this. I need this grammar book. I need that book, and they would be sent. And then, actually, I taught in the junior high school. I taught in the high school, and I taught in the training college also. These levels are actually different, but then the same problem was that when I taught adults, they were okay. They could go find books and want to, look at topics that you were teaching. But then it was not like getting the internet anywhere. Then there was nothing, As I'm telling you, this is about 20 years ago, right? About 22 years ago, there were nothing like we have now. So that's when we talk about resources. That's what we mean. Like nothing, no textbooks. The few ones that the Department of Education brings us, what teachers would want to use back then.
And do you feel that how bad is that problem? So, in other words, how does it impact the students? Because I think educators like we are want to they want to spread education because they want people to have equal opportunity, and so how much do you think this impacts on the native population?
Okay, so when I got out of Ghana and got exposed to some other countries like China and Ghana, I saw that. So then, when I taught in those times, students really didn't have anything, and therefore they should have been lacking academically, in terms, because they didn't have much, but only had to use what we had. Textbooks that we had were prescribed textbooks that were given by the Department of Education and so on. Now, so take it here. Students can do their own research and do discoveries, right? Then in Ghana, we didn't have, right? Okay. So students burnt the midnight oil, studying all they had. Now, I know students I taught today who have a PhD. They have their master's degree. Some in other countries, some still in Ghana. Actually, I went into Ghana 3 months ago, and I met a few of these students. I went to teach in a university for 1 month, and there I met some of the students I had taught in the junior high school, teaching in the university. Now, they thanked me, said, all that you did, all that you taught us has helped us. And I said, why do you say that? What was it I taught you? I said, the readings, every early morning you have to do reading, and you do vocabulary, and you do dictation, you do spelling, and these things were things that really impacted them. So now, these things had impact on them. If you're asking if they lacked, I would say I cannot measure that. But as much as I am concerned, they learned, they made use of the little they had, and in as much as today is concerned and education is concerned, they have really made marks. They have got to higher levels. So, in as much as it might be a problem, student lacking resources, but it is also important to realize the fact that the little they use, the little they can make use of, is able to help them in all respects. So I cannot measure whether they lacked much. You asked if it has had any impact on them, probably negatively. I have not seen that. Those that did what they had to do really saw it.
Yeah, in some sense, you're saying that the lack of resources kind of made them more resourceful.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's what I got from what you were saying. It made them more resourceful, and it explains why so many students from Ghana just do so well here. You know,
right?
They really burn the midnight oil, as you were saying. So I see where that comes from. Okay, so let's make the shift now to China.
Right.
Why did you decide to go to China?
Yes, my university had this exchange program where students from my school would go into China to study. So I signed up to go. You study and then you teach. So I signed up to go teach English and then to study for my master's degree in English. So that's what sent me there. And I loved that country. So, I stayed even after school to teach in the university. Yes.
I guess before we get into teaching there, what was it like to go to what I presume is a very different culture and get acclimated to living there? What is that like?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Here is an African who has boarded a plane. It was March in China then. Supposedly, March is spring, right? I didn't even know the seasons very well. In March, it was March 27th, and it was not snowing, but there was a lot of cold. I hadn't felt that cold ever in my life, and so that's where the whole thing began. And I was very sad and very frustrated because I hadn't gotten myself into a weather like that. If I found the weather to be very bad because it was too cold. Then the language was another problem. Everywhere you talk to anyone and he doesn't speak English and she doesn't speak English, and it is Chinese. No, I don't speak English, and they say,不要英语. So they tell you that, and so in the first week of my stay was a big problem because I had to go buy things I needed. I would go and know English. How would I survive?
Yeah.
So it was very frustrating. So I decided, okay, I am going to learn the language. So I began. How do you say that? I would see people and ask them, how do you say this? When I get into the classroom to teach, I ask them, how do you say this? I want to buy fruits. How do you say fruits? And I began writing. So somehow, when I began to understand the language, when I began to learn the language, I got acclimatized. It was okay. I got a soft landing, and it was fine. So I began speaking Chinese, and then I became Chinese, and I got it was normal with me to yoke with them, to do what they did. I mean, to do what they do, I should say, because it's back then. I'd want to be past then. So it was a wonderful experience to yoke with them. The first time my students invited me to have dinner. It's a very important thing for students to invite a teacher to dinner. So when we went, they only gave us sticks, chopsticks. Yeah. There were other teachers, foreign teachers, who were there also with us. Some from America, some also from Africa, some from London, and we sat together around, by a round table, and they only brought sticks. Can you imagine? And there were no forks and no knives and no spoons, and we had to use the sticks. So the Chinese, they were just eating, doing their jobs, and
not paying attention to you.
Yeah, and then they were not at all. They paid no attention to us, and they were laughing. And you know what? It was something they did. It was a practice that when you have a foreigner come to visit you, you take them for dinner, give them the chopsticks. Let them struggle with it. So after that day, I got some chopsticks and went to practice at home how to use the chopsticks. It was very interesting. And today, I can use it very well.
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that. I was just the other day at a Japanese restaurant, and I was trying to teach the girl that I was with. I was trying to teach her, how to use the chopsticks. And it's very hard to teach somebody how to use the chopsticks. I don't even know how to use them that well. I just watched some YouTube videos and I practiced, and I got better at it. But I understand that you went home and you practiced. It's definitely something you have to practice.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Okay, just before we get to the teaching, because I do want to talk about that. I'm deeply fascinated with languages, so I have to know. I can sort of already see it. I can understand how you get into it, because this is really a matter of your survival and your well-being at this point.
That's it. Yeah.
So you were really you really had to learn it.
Right.
But can, like, I don't know. What were some techniques that you used to acquire the language? Because you speak Chinese very well. I mean,
right.
We sometimes have exchanges in Chinese. I would love to learn Chinese. But 我的中文不好。
你的中文不好，一点点。Yeah.
My Chinese is not very good.
Yeah, you said it right. But then, yeah, go ahead.
So, what kind of strategies did you use to learn Chinese?
Okay, so in the beginning, in China, I began to write anything I had. I wrote, so I could practice. I found that I could not follow that. I could not read what I saw. What I wrote down, I could not constantly read, like to just like I read English to learn. No, I couldn't do that. Now there is those who study ESL and other language philosophers will say that immersion is one very important thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
So when you immerse yourself in the language, that is when you are with the people that speak the language. When you yoke with the people, you hear it. You hear them speak. And you speak it too. Because even children we teach have to listen to us speak in order to grasp the few words they begin to take up.
Yes.
So now I found that I had to immerse myself with them. So I began yoking myself with my students. And anytime I went to do grocery, I speak. I just speak it. I speak the little I have, and they say, and I repeat. So I was just crazy. And the motivation is also very important. I made sure that I spoke about more than 10 words every day. I'd want to say good morning to someone, and anytime or each time they said anything I did not know, I'd ask what that meant. And I kept repeating to myself what every new word I had, I repeated to myself.
Use it in a
So
sentence.
so it was every day. For the 5 years that I lived in China, it was an everyday thing. I couldn't even watch English movies anymore. I was watching Chinese movies because I just wanted to hear the word. There were some words I heard I could not understand. I would just say them to those who understood, and they would explain them to me. So, and then also we did. There was a program in the school that had teachers go through the learning in class. We had professors who taught foreign teachers Chinese, how to write it and how to pronounce and the grammar and all that. So I went through that also. And in class, can you imagine the professor who taught all of us that did Chinese were foreigners who spoke English. Not any one of us knew how to speak Chinese, but the teacher never spoke English.
Yeah.
She only spoke Chinese. And if there was something she wanted to say, she would draw that on the board. If there was a flag, she would say, flag, megwo guochi. Then he would say, megwo, it's America. Then he would draw the flag. And then, by the time she draws the flag, you have already auditioned. You have already heard the word pronounced many times.
Yes.
And you must have absorbed it.
Okay.
And so that's how the language came. And I never stopped speaking Chinese. I always want to speak it. So I believe that mastery of any language comes with speaking and reading.
And forcing yourself to use the language.
Thank you. That's what makes it what it is.
Not using English, but forcing yourself to use Chinese. And if you're stuck, you work around that with Chinese.
Yeah, sometimes they will laugh at you, and sometimes it's been very embarrassing. But I didn't care about that. I will speak it, whatever.
So your philosophy sounds a lot like what I've been reading about. There's a certain polyglot named Benny, the Irish polyglot, who I read his book Fluent in 3 months, and the idea is that it's immersion, it's speaking from day one. The idea is force yourself to use the language and to speak it. So it relies not so heavily on like textbooks,
right,
or a particular, let's say, program like Rosetta Stone or something, but rather working that brain capacity to use the language.
Right.
That's really what we want, right? We want to be able to speak it, so we should speak.
Yes. Of course, I know many people who speak English very well but cannot write it. So speaking language actually has little to do with writing it.
Yeah, and reading and listening.
Right. So
Yeah.
it only helps you to reading and writing helps you to increase vocabulary, help you to express yourself in a certain way higher than the normal usage of language. But then speaking the language can be done even without writing or reading coming in.
Right. Okay, so let's go into you teaching Chinese students.
Right.
What is it like to be a foreigner, an African, teaching Chinese in China? I'm
Okay.
sorry,
Yeah.
English in China.
Yeah, English in China. Yeah, thank you. James, it was, again, a very interesting experience. I taught English to final year students, final year bachelor students, bachelor of English majors, and then I also taught to master's students of other disciplines. In fact, the course, content was, I taught two courses. One of the course contents was one is to teach students to decipher between types of English, Canadian English, American English, British English, and Nigerian English, other types of English. Is the camera okay?
Yeah, we're trying to live stream. It says my storage is full, but that's okay. The live stream won't suffer too much.
Okay. So I had to teach students to try to make a difference between English that Africans speak, like Zimbabwean English, Nigerian English, and American English. So if American speaks, you should know this is an American. So in effect, trying to get them to know different accents.
Yeah.
This is one course area. So it was making the students hear speeches. These I downloaded speeches of different people, different texts that did reading, and so on. Yeah. So that's how it all began. So the students they'll come to class. In fact, Chinese students are really very different. I do not know, but I could not establish that rule. Students of China never ask questions when you are teaching them. They will listen attentively. They are very much on time. When the class is 7 o'clock, they are there at 6:30. I taught my lessons in a language lab. They are always there on time. They will listen attentively, and they will not ask any questions. So whether you have achieved your objective, you will not know until you give them an assignment. That's when you understand. But they would. The rule in China is you can ask the teacher questions when the lesson is over or when you're on break.
Oh.
So,
okay.
I really had an interesting experience that during breaks they will come to ask you many questions. They are very honest. Those that will come to ask you questions or tell you what it is you didn't do right and so on. They will tell you directly. They will, and they are very respectful. In fact, it's not very easy to engage Chinese students like to engage American students. American students can, talk with the teacher. They can, if the teacher is wrong somewhere, they can tell the teacher, I think you're not right. The Chinese students cannot tell you that. They only listen to you. If they can express themselves, presenting issues against what you have probably said or taught them, they can only do that maybe in writing. They cannot say that to you in passing during your lessons in class. So it is like that, and I found that the teaching method I could use was probably to put students into groups, to get them to interact with each other, and that's the only time I can interact with them. Otherwise, if you want to teach them directly, like using a lecture method, you want to ask questions, try to engage students, nobody talks. They will not speak at all. You ask a question and they are quiet. They will not say anything. It was weird. It was strange to me. And I asked them, why is it like that? I said, okay, it's a rule in China. Students don't ask questions. And even if you ask questions, they might not answer you because that is it's cultural. So what I always did was to put them in groups, get them to interact with each other, and sometimes give them speeches, give them assignments to come to present. And then we talk about that. We will peer review their speech, and that's how I got them. So the pedagogy that I had to use in China was very different from the one I used in Ghana, because these are two very different cultures altogether. So it really helped me to develop other approaches to teach students.
Right. So it seems like you had to work around the cultural thing that prevented them from asking questions. And one way you did that was basically gauging what they were doing in the groups, and how well they were doing in their peer review. So I was gonna say, do you probe them with questions? But you're saying sometimes they don't even answer that.
Yes.
Okay.
They don't even answer.
I see. So were those really the techniques you used to get around that issue?
Yes. Giving assignments and then putting them in groups to present assignments, and then giving presentations and writings. That's how So sometimes I would ask a question and put them in groups, and then tell them to present, and that's why I get them to answer questions.
Ah, okay.
Right.
That's creative.
Right.
Okay. So now let's move on to teaching here in America.
Right.
So what made you decide to leave China and come to America?
Yeah, actually, I came into America. I used to come and leave, come, go, and it was to and fro thing, because I did come to perform on the piano for church programs, and I'll go back. So I did that for like three times, and when I came back, I stayed, and when you are out there, everybody likes America. America's a wonderful place to be, and so on and so on. So the church here needed my service as a musician, so they had to work things out to have to come to let me stay, so I could use my expertise to help the church make progress in its ministry. So I would say I came as a music minister to stay for the church and to work for the church. So, haven't come to stay, the other talents I have, the other expertise that I have in teaching English had to also come into play here. So, I began using that one also here.
Okay, so how was it like to teach in the United States? How was it different? How was it the same?
Yeah, I had the experience of teaching in a private Seventh-day Adventist institution, the elementary levels, grade 5, grade 6, grade 7. Yeah, so I saw something very different. The students in America, I want to say, if I compare them to China, and I'll say, I don't know if that is the right way to put it, but most of the students are really very disrespectful. They do not respect it. The teacher has to have a very large stomach of patience.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're a teacher in America, you have to be very patient. Actually, it was kind of a cultural shock for me. I couldn't, a student can just get up and say anything to the teacher and walk out. And you can talk to the students. That the discipline aspect of it is really very difficult when it comes to teaching students. Most of them come with different problems. So that's why I had to begin to train myself, because I was exposed to a very different world altogether. And I had to learn to be quiet, watch the student. Sometimes I had to send students out when it comes to that side. Now, how about teaching? The students will engage you. If you want to engage students, they will engage you as well. If the concepts you are teaching are not in line, they would want to, project what they have as against yours. And you have to prepare very well, because the students they have resources, and everything you are teaching is already in existence. So by the time you come to the class, they already know what you are teaching, because you have told them. Okay. You give them a course outline. So you want to believe that they already have gone through it. So you must be really very prepared. And I think it's a very interesting experience. Now, I did not have any problems with my teaching method. The only aspect that I find very problematic is discipline and keeping students in order. The classroom control, this is a very important area. Classroom management. I found that I have to do my best at classroom management in order to keep my class going. Yes. Okay, yes. So now in college, I sat quietly and thought about how to put my class in order, because I knew that, knowing what I experienced in the elementary level, I knew the college was going to be more than I saw there. So I tried to put things in order to prepare to, so that if I encounter any problem. So I drew some rules in my college, in all my classes. I put down a rule. I share that to students. Rule number 1, rule number 2, rule number 3, rule number 4. Do not come to class late. Submit assignments on time. When I'm teaching, no talking, no staying on phones. Do you agree? If you agree, you sign. If you don't, then probably you cannot be in the class. So I lay all these things bare. And they sign, and I give 1 to the dean. I keep 1, and they keep 1. So that's how I manage my class. But teaching in America I have found it easier, except that part of classroom management, because here students understand English, because that's what we, that's the medium. And they do, because it's their language, they understand everything you say and all that. They can ask questions, they can express themselves, they can ask you anything they want, So that's what I would say.
Okay, so I wanted to say 2 things about that. One is, it's fascinating that just connecting it to Ghana and even to China in a different aspect. Connecting it to Ghana, those students, as we discussed, had a lack of resources, but it also made them very grateful and very hardworking.
Yes.
And it seems like here there's an abundance of resources, and in some sense we can hypothesize that it's made them a bit entitled.
I want to buy this you were telling me. It's really a very profound, idea. What you're saying is really, 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 it's so important. I don't have the adjectives to describe what you just said. Look, sometimes I have to beg students to come to class, right?
Yeah.
I beg students to come to class. They have everything. 1, You know, students in Ghana do not have financial aid like that.
Right.
Students here in college have financial aid, but they will not come to class. But then sometimes they want to be given the grade.
Mhm.
Oh, you give them everything, handouts, all these things are there. You give them, they have textbooks, everything.
Yeah.
They will not come to class. Sometimes they wouldn't even study. It looks like someone is forcing them to come to school.
Yeah.
It looks like someone is,
Exactly.
they are doing it for someone and they are finding it reluctant to do so. So when I see this, I get so flabbergasted. I say, I come from a place where people want opportunities like this. People don't have what you have. I tell you, there are people somewhere. I went to a village in China, a very remote village where they don't even have chairs to sit on. During holidays, I volunteered teaching in some very remote villages in China. They are very poor, and they sometimes it's crazy. They don't have any resources, but they are willing to learn. They are willing to study.
Yes.
But students in America have everything, yet they will not take them for free.
So, yeah. What it seems like to me is that because when I teach, I notice a lot of the same things.
Right.
So it is something that, it seems like you just can't teach appreciation. You can't teach gratitude. And it's unfortunate that it becomes part of the atmosphere of teaching. It's like trying to get people engaged. I mean, the people who are engaged, they're going to do well. But it's something that I learned this semester is that that there are students who, it's. I mean, you were talking earlier about like results, like you're trying to get them to pass a test or whatever.
Yes.
But sometimes it's the luck of the draw. You can't really measure a teacher's abilities by the results because sometimes they get students who just are either not motivated and you can't motivate them. Or motivating them would just take up too much of your time, or you get students. And maybe that's a particular problem for here and not in other schools, but who have, just other difficulties. They're working a lot or they have family problems or spousal problems or, some of them even have children that prevent them from being the full students that they can be.
Right.
And I know that because there have been students who do very well in essays or in tests or quizzes, but who, just go missing for weeks. So I don't know. That's just the problem that we have.
Yeah, James, I think it has to do with discipline. It has to do with how we put things together for ourselves in order to reach the goals that we set for ourselves. Now, we always have to be thinking about how to accomplish the now. And as much as we should have visions, we also have at any point in time what we want to accomplish as students, as people who want to reach where they want to be. Right. Okay. So I am a family man. I have 5 kids, and I'm a PhD student. I'm a professor, right? I'm a tutor in the writing center. Sometimes I'm a director of music. I go to choir rehearsals every time to teach the choir. I have to sit down to compose, sit down to rehearse, sit down to grade student papers, sit down to write papers, 20 pages, 20, all these things. Still be a father, be all these things. I have learned to put things together. I have learned to schedule my myself, putting myself at vantage. I mean, I know what I have to do at this time and the other. I think that no matter what it is we're doing, we need to be sure that we really want to do what we are doing. I think students need to be sure of what they are looking for. We need to know what we are looking for, what we want to achieve. If that one becomes the object of our vision, then we can do everything possible to reach it. We need to put things in place. We work towards our goals, not sit looking at them to get them. Goals aren't accomplished by themselves, but we work towards them. So whether you work, you do whatever you do, once you begin to do this, you must make sure you try to finish it. This is I'm not ambitious like that, but I always want to accomplish. I set it out for myself that before I get to 40 years, I need to have accomplished my PhD. I couldn't do that, but I would have been more. I would have been more than 40. I see that I would be 43 before I'm done with my PhD. But then I have accomplished it anyway. So we need to work towards whatever there's an adage in my account that if you have too many jobs, you do too many jobs. If you have too many jobs, you do too many jobs. So if you have 3, you do 3. If you have 5, you make sure that you do 5 of them.
That's a great attitude. I mean, the issue is like, how do we as educators tackle that issue with our students? Because it's one thing to learn it as part of their culture. It's another thing, to deal with it as educators. Maybe this will be the last sort of question.
Okay.
So what do you think? Well, how can we deal with that?
Yeah. As a teacher, I see myself as a minister of God. I always want to say it is a ministry. And teachers are not in the classrooms only to just teach, but we are there to shape people. We are there to create leaders. We are there to groom people. And so we attend to the problems that students have. I'm not saying we solve the problems for students, but we need to encourage them. Sometimes we need to listen to. That's why, me personally, if I find some students missing, I call them. What's going on? And maybe I can offer an advice. So the only way we can deal with such problems is it's going to be a dynamic issue. We cannot have one singular style, but it's going to be something changing over time. Everything we see in class will come, every problem we find in class will come with its own solution.
Yeah.
So we need to be there to encourage. We need to be there to groom. We need to be there to shape and to help students. We just can't just teach, and a student comes to me, I don't know how to I don't know literature, and they want me to appreciate a book. So the teacher expects the student to go to discover, right? But then, if the teacher had spent a little time to put in the students that interest to do it, if you had taught the students, you have put the fire in the student, let the student burn it. Let the student, set the student on fire. But don't just get the student to go get the fire for. There's a problem most teachers do have. This is what I think. Before I get you to appreciate a book, I'll fire your interest. I'll fuel you to get interested, and you will go to do it. But I'll not just push it there. And that's what many teachers are not doing. We need to encourage students. We need to push them out there, get them on fire, and they will do what they have to do.
That's a very Promethean message, I feel like.
I love that one.
Yeah, and okay, we'll end it on that.
Right.
I think that's a great message. I do think there are some challenges and how much you can do that for students, but I agree with your message that it's not just we're there to, be facilitators, but sometimes in order to facilitate learning, you have to do a little bit of encouragement. You have to, sort of encourage that fire within them to grow.
Thank you.
So before we end the podcast, is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with, or maybe even your church, or things that they can see you perform, or anything that you want to leave the people with?
Yes, okay. So listeners and all of those who are watching and listening to us, everyone that's listening and watching, I thank you for doing so. The last words that I want to leave behind is that I have learned that life itself is a struggle, and nothing is easy, and nothing is difficult. Whatever we want to do, we have that power to do it, if only we shall not turn back. If we shall not look left, we shall not look right. If we are focused, we can get to wherever we want to be. But as a teacher, I have learned not only to teach in the classroom. My philosophy is to make sure I shape students, encourage students, get them on fire, put fire in students to push them where they have to be. I'm not doing it just for money. For me, it is a ministry. It is a call. And so that's why I do what I do. And no matter how difficult it is, I think it will be easy also, in as much as I keep on doing it, in as much as I keep being patient, in as much as the focus is there that I want to do something that's good. So that's what I will leave with you. In everything that you're doing, I believe that you can also have the same philosophy. You not be doing it just for yourself or just for money, but you do it for the sake of humanity. Do it so that someone can benefit from you. Someone should be blessed from whatever thing that you do, whatever job, whatever endeavor that you give out to humanity. Thank you.
Great words. Okay, so thank you very much for being on episode 3 of the Gym Nog Pod, and for kind of saving this episode because I was having trouble finding somebody. Thank you again, Mr. Boateng.
Thank you very much, Professor James Noguera. Thank you very much.
Next time on the Gym Nog Pod, episode 4, Jose Reyes. Teacher, friend, colleague. He works for the CUNY Language Immersion Program right here at BCC. And he's just an all-around good guy. We've known each other for a long time, and I look forward to our conversation. Music by Marcos de Jesus, marcosanlaguagua.com. Art by Seco1844, at Seco1844 on Instagram. If you like the show, subscribe wherever you find it. My website is jamesnoguera.com. Noguera is Noguera. And thank you for your interest.